We say one thing, people hear and understand something else. And how to deal with this. So a couple of points. First of all, as with any of those sorts of things, misunderstandings, miscommunications, personality problems, conflicts with people, a good general rule of thumb is, if it's only one person in my community who has that problem, chances are the problem is with that person or in our interaction. But if the problem is with lots of people, chances are the problem's in me. So if I say, God, there's this person in my office or this neighbor that I have or this person in the community, and whatever I say, they misunderstand, they take it the wrong way. And that's the only person in my life that I have that problem with. Okay, chances are it's an issue with that person. Or an issue in our energetic or linguistic communication. But if I find that pretty much wherever I go, I have communication problems with people, that's when it's really important to look within and say, what is it about my style of communicating that makes people not understand? And there's a lot of different aspects here. Number one, communication is not only verbal. Communication is also in our body language. And so we know, for example, even with animals, with dogs, people who have dogs as a pet, if you say to the dog, "You beautiful, wonderful, amazing animal," that dog's going to go, right? I mean, the dog thinks it's just been blasted and scolded and you're going to kick it. And if you say to it, "You horrible, worthless, stupid animal," the dog is going to go, and it's going to come and want to get petted because it understands I'm about to get some loving. Now, you could say, well, clearly the dog doesn't understand anything because I've just told it it's stupid and worthless. Why does it think it's going to get some love in here? Because my tone is the tone of love. And in the first case, even though my words were very nice, my tone was such that it conveys anger and fury and maybe even violence if I'm a violent person or my dog is used to violence. Now that's a very drastic example, but the same thing happens in our communications. Raise your hand if you're married or you've ever been married. Here, raise your hand. Okay, great, so most of you. So if your husband or wife seems a little bit off, and you say to them, "Honey, what's wrong?" And they say, "Oh, nothing." And they walk out and slam the door. Okay? How many of you are going to believe that nothing's wrong? Anybody? We know, obviously, something is wrong. Now, they've told us nothing. They've said nothing. But their demeanor, their actions have said something completely different. So we know, okay, there is a problem here. So a lot of times with communication, the reason that we may find that we have miscommunications with people is our words say one thing, but our demeanor, our body language, our actions, our tone of voice, whatever it may be, says something completely different. So that's where it's really important to be honest with ourselves. Is what I'm saying really honest? So if I'm the one who says nothing is wrong, I know that wasn't honest. I know something's wrong. Something's not wrong. I'm not going to walk out and slam the door. Clearly something is wrong. But I'm playing a little game here. Maybe the game is I want them to keep coming. "Oh, tell me, honey. Oh, what is it, honey? Oh, what did I do wrong, honey?" Maybe I want them to follow me. Maybe I'm angry at them. Whatever it may be, I know that I'm not being honest. And the way that you know that is if I say nothing, And the other person says, well, okay, then what's for dinner? How am I going to respond? What the hell? Can't you see? Don't you know I'm upset? But you just said nothing's wrong. But you know something's wrong. And then we get into these spats. I've said nothing is wrong. The person took it at face value, started now asking me what's for dinner. Now I'm doubly angry because not only was I upset in the first place, but now I feel ignored. I feel like nobody cares about me. Clearly I'm upset. Yeah, I lied about it, but clearly I'm upset. Can't you tell? And so if we're having communication problems, we have to first ask ourselves, is what I said really honest? And if not, then let me make sure that I'm actually speaking the truth. Because if it's really the truth, it's going to be in sync. My tone of voice, my words, my body language, my actions, everything is in sync. But if what I'm speaking is not true, that's when things get out of sync. The last important piece here, though, because this happens a lot of times when we embark on a spiritual path, and we're trying to explain it to our family members, let's say, or our old friends, people who don't understand spirituality on that level. And that becomes a slightly different problem, but I'm going to go there for a minute because we're speaking what to us is truth, and they cannot hear it. Why? Because it sounds crazy to them. I know when I first came here, and my parents did not understand what was going on, and they kept saying, why, what is it that you see there? What is it that you do there? What is it that makes you want to live there? Well, for me, the highest truth was God. The highest truth was I was experiencing God. The highest truth was Ganga, this sacred river. The highest truth was Pujya Sadhviji, my guru, in whom I was experiencing the divine. And I would talk to my parents and I would say, I see God. Now, when I said that, what they heard was, she's been brainwashed. She's gone crazy. She's joined a cult. Okay? Now, it didn't matter how many times I said, I see God. Every single time what they heard was, she's been brainwashed. Why? Because that's just not part of their world. And in most of the particularly Western world, people join religious organizations. They start talking about seeing God. They leave their life behind. What does it mean? It means they've been brainwashed and joined a cult. And so that's what they heard. And what I learned very early on was a wonderful, wonderful truth, which was I kept speaking my highest truth because to me, that was what I was called upon to do. So every time they talked to me about India and why I wanted to be here, I would talk about seeing God. And every time I said that, I could see their faces get all red and worried. And I knew what they were hearing was gone crazy, joined cult, daughter's gone, lost her, like that. And what I finally realized was, if I knew they couldn't hear it, it wasn't truth for me to keep speaking it. If my highest truth, let's call it the letter A, let's just take the alphabet for a moment. Let's say highest truth is A. But every single time I say A, you hear C. And I know that. I know that if I say A, you hear C. Well, then speaking A is no longer speaking truth because I know that what's going in your ears is C. But then, if I speak B, now B is closer to truth than C is, right? B is closer to A than C is. And if I speak B, maybe you can hear B. And for me, B was the seva. B was the children. B was the schools. B was the medical care programs. B was all of the humanitarian programs that we're running here. So I could talk to them about the children and the schools and the women and the healthcare, and they could hear that. And what I realized was that even though it wasn't my highest truth, because A was my highest truth, speaking B was actually more true than speaking A. Because when I spoke A, they heard C. And if I spoke B, they could hear B. And so it became necessary for me, instead of trying to speak A and to ram it into them, knowing it's not going to work, for me to speak something that they could actually hear and understand, which also is true. It just wasn't my highest truth. But it was a truth they were able to hear. And I mention that point as well because a lot of us, as we're on this path, will find people don't understand. Well, is there a way you can explain it to them that they can understand? And it may not necessarily be the fullness and the most complete highestness of your ecstatic experiences. But is there a piece of it you can speak that they hear, that they understand? If so, speak that. Because slowly, slowly, slowly through that, you can bring them to A. But A is not something that you can convince someone of. It's something they have to feel. And as long as what they're hearing is cult and brainwashing, nobody's in the mood to feel anything. But if they can hear children and schools and women and healthcare and trees, well, they relax. They open up. And then slowly, slowly, they start to be able to feel A.